Hi, everybody. I am Dr. Kreider. Welcome to Intro to Philosophy Online. For this first video, I'm just going to take a little bit of time to go over the syllabus, especially hit some of the main parts of it. Hopefully you found that. You've had a chance to look at it, maybe get it out. I'll put it up on the screen a little bit here and there, but mostly you can probably just follow along. Do read the whole thing very carefully. There is a quiz on it. Some of the information can be found on the syllabus itself. Some of it you have to get from my talking about stuff here. In order to not, spend too much time, I'm not going to read every teeny little thing out loud to you. But there's a lot of stuff on here that's really important. So I just want to clarify and emphasize, but you absolutely should read the whole thing yourself and let me know if you have follow-up questions about things that I didn't talk about here, right? So if you just kind of follow along, I can share the screen a little bit here on and off. So we'll just spend a little time here first, looking at probably the most important stuff, a little bit of basic info, and then the grading stuff. Follow along there, and I'll have mine here as well. So this is a Phil 109, Introduction to Philosophy. I'm teaching a couple of different sections of this, so you might have a different section number than some other students, but you should see your section on Canvas, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Dr. Kreider, that's me. You can, when I post things, I often like sign them Dr. K, and I'm not trying to be like cool or anything. It's just, I'm too lazy to spend the time to spell out my own last name. You are welcome when you email me or message me to also address me as Dr. K, and that will save you a couple of seconds of typing. There's some contact information for me up top there. It shows kind of my standard office hours. If you wanted to meet with me face to face and you're around campus, you're welcome to do that. I'm also around more than that, but those are just like the official office hours. Sometimes I'm in other classes, meetings, things like that. We can also meet via Zoom if you need to, but usually default, just, send me an email or message me through Canvas and we can talk back and forth that way, and it goes pretty well. My email address is up there as well. Like it says, just a couple of, basic disclaimers here. You're responsible for reading the whole syllabus thoroughly, including the things I don't go over verbally, and let me know if you have any questions. And everything on this syllabus is tentative and subject to change with notice. That usually just means if I found a typo or something, I don't usually make substantive changes during the semester. And also kind of an unwritten disclaimer. As I go through this, I'm going to kind of talk about how the class works, some of the do's and the don'ts and the rules and the consequences. I don't mean that to come off like thinking that it's going to be a horrible semester and you guys are all terrible and I need to like scare you with rules and things. Most of you will be just lovely and do very well in the class. But as you can imagine, once in a while, there's an issue with a problem student. And I just find that having a lot of really clear stuff on here that I went over verbally just makes it a lot easier for me to deal with that when it comes up. When those conversations come up, I can just say, hey, man, it's on the syllabus. I went over it. Don't know what to tell you. Okay, so thanks to the rest of you for indulging me as we go over this stuff. The text is The Good Life, right? Here's my rather battered copy of it. A nice cheap text. It's one of these not for profit educational publishers, but really high quality stuff. Hackett, I like them a lot. This is what we're using this semester, what your readings are from. Please do make sure that you get it ASAP, that we will start having assignments out of this right away. Honestly, you should have it already. The information has been available via the bookstore website for months now. You always want to have your books before the semester started. But if you don't have it, get it right away because you will need it for reading. Just kind of continuing on what I showed you there, the grading breakdown. This is some of the most important stuff. So discussions are 30%, quizzes are 30%, tests are 30%, and there's a final reflection that's 10%. Each of these will have detailed directions as the time comes. So for example, there's a quiz over this syllabus lecture. You'll have already seen the information about that on Canvas, and it has detailed directions. So make sure you read those really thoroughly, especially for this first one, so you understand how they work, things like that. And then the discussions will start next time too, and it will also have detailed directions. As far as the discussions go, again, they're worth 30%. There's 19 of these discussion assignments, about 2 a week, give or take, depending on what's going on that week, and then a few weeks that are devoted to the tests. I do drop the lowest 3 discussion grades. This is not because I'm super nice or because they don't matter or anything like that. It's because, as you'll see in the directions, there are very, very strict deadlines for these, and that's for both technological and pedagogical reasons. So once the discussion assignments are closed, you may not complete them. You may not ask me to reopen them for you personally. There's literally no way to do that for just one person without having it open for everyone. And there's no point in doing them weeks later when everybody else has moved on. It's supposed to be an interactive discussion, right? Having said that, I know life happens sometimes, so that's why I'm willing to drop 3 because they are very, very strict with their deadlines and closing dates. And talk about that more in the directions for these. You'll see the first discussion assignment on our next class meeting for the schedule in the back of the syllabus here. These are completed on Canvas in the discussion area, and they're very straightforward kind of discussions. It's an opportunity for you to demonstrate that you understood the material via the book and the lecture, and then say what you think about it, and then interact with your fellow students, a little back and forth discussion, etc. Right? Each of them accompanies a particular lecture. There's no discussion over a syllabus lecture, but all the rest of them have one. And directions and due dates are posted with each of them. And again, you can see the schedule on the back for some of that too, right? Let's see here, making sure I don't miss anything. Good. Quizzes, also 30%, also 19 of them. There is a quiz over the syllabus. Again, you should see that already up there. None of these are dropped. There are late penalties if you don't do them on time, but for both technological and pedagogical reasons, I'm willing to leave them open longer and take them with late penalties at the very least. They're generally just sort of multiple choice quizzes that are based on the reading and the lectures. And so, a typical format for these is there will be these questions, these multiple choice questions that really kind of follow along with the reading and the lecture. So, you can watch the lecture, take notes, and then go do the quiz, or you can even, kind of have them open as you're going, but you might want to watch the whole thing and read it before you do that. Maybe just kind of follow the quiz, kind of jot down tentative answers, and then when you're all done, go back and do the quizzes. Again, they'll have very specific directions. There's a quiz over the syllabus today. You'll see a link in that quiz to the directions. Please read them thoroughly. Let me know if you have questions. There are tests that are worth 30% of your grade. There's 3 of them. Again, no test grades are dropped. About every third of the semester, we kind of pause and give you an opportunity to pick one of the philosophers. We've done that third of the semester and write about them a bit in a short essay where you demonstrate your understanding of the philosopher and then react to them. If you've been doing your work all along and doing your quizzes and your discussions, these will be very, very easy. You'll have already learned the material, thought about it, given some opinions about it that you shared in discussions. So as long as you're doing your stuff, are very, very straightforward. Right? Again, those will be posted at the relevant time. They will have their own directions. You'll read those thoroughly and let me know if you have questions about them. And then finally, there's this final reflections worth 10% of your grade. This is on Canvas, and it's just another short essay, but it asks you to kind of think about the semester as a whole, maybe pick a couple of the different philosophers, and really just what it sounds like, kind of reflect on the semester, what you've learned, what you got out of it, what you thought about it. So again, if you've been doing your work all along, it will be very, very easy to do. You've been doing your readings, watching the lectures, discussions, etc. And I'll make sure to get that, assignment direction to you at least a couple weeks in advance. Okay? The grading scale is there for your convenience. Just a couple of, disclaimers, which again, I know most of you don't need to hear. But your grades are just based on your actual performance and not necessarily reasons for not doing well. Sometimes I get that a little bit, like, oh, I was sick and that's why I didn't do well. I believe you, I understand, but at the end of the day, it doesn't affect the grading, right? You have to do what you do on the quizzes and the discussions and so forth in order to get the grade that you deserve, not the grade you want or quote need, okay? Right, so don't ask me to go easy on you is basically what that says. Your grades are recorded on Canvas all along. Make sure you're keeping an eye on those so that there's not like a big surprise at the end of the semester. What? I had no idea I was doing this poorly. And then at the very bottom of the page here, let me share this again because I don't think it showed up before. You should see before we transfer over a little something about email, Canvas messaging, and then we'll move on to the stuff on the next page there. So again, just kind of follow along. All right. Email and through Canvas messaging is the best way to get a hold of me. if you have questions and so forth outside of class, please don't call me. Calling is a terrible, terrible way to get a hold of me. I love the younger generation. I feel like the rest of the world has finally caught up to me in my disdain for talking on the phone. I don't like talking on the phone. I find it a very inefficient way of doing things. Zoom meetings are actually much, much better than a disembodied voice on a device. If we need to do that, it's okay. But first and foremost, the best way to get a hold of me is not by trying to call me. It's sending me an email or messaging me through Canvas, which will also auto-generate an email to me, right? I also expect you to keep an eye on those things. You're responsible for anything I might message you or email you about. And do, expect responses from me during a typical work day. I'm not on call 24 hours a day. If you email in the evening, it might not be until the next day that I get back to you. If you email over the weekend, it might not be until Monday, that kind of thing, right? Having said that, I'm on email a fair amount, and I don't mind getting back to you right away if I see it. But I'm also, again, I'm not working 24 hours a day. I have a life outside of this place. It'll be that. Miscellaneous notices and policies on the top of page 2 here. Again, a lot of these are things I know most of you don't need to be told explicitly, but just makes my job a little easier. If you can indulge me here a bit. There is a Canvas website for this class. If you're seeing this now, you're on it already. The online students, it's very easy. Just to show you a couple things real quick. This is sort of that student view there. And there's a couple of things over here that won't pop up in the little menu on the left until some things are posted, like assignments and quizzes. But you'll see the basic kind of things. Announcements are where according to the schedule, where I post, different assignments and things. The discussion area is where you go and do your discussion assignments. Be able to see grades here. Pages just, I think, has where the syllabus is. And then you also have access to things like Office 365, Zoom, a nice link to the UWO library. So again, if you're seeing this now, you already figured out how to log on and know where things are. But let me know if you have questions about it, okay? Um, I won't read all of these notices and policies, but I do want to hit some of the most important ones. If you have an accommodation plan, make sure that I get that right away. It's not something that I necessarily automatically get unless you kind of work with the relevant office to make sure that I get that. And then I kind of sign off on that. Let me know in advance if you think that there's going to be things that affect the class. All right. We can chat about, how this affects things like testing time and things like that. Okay. But I do need the official paperwork on that stuff. I can't give people extra accommodations just based on their say-so about a learning disability or something. It has to be official through UWO. Late assignments exams may be penalized if accepted at all. And this is especially true in my online classes where it's all automated. You'll see that in the directions for the quizzes, discussions, etc. Where if you're late, it just starts taking off points. So make sure you're getting things in on time. I'm generally giving you tons and tons of time to get stuff done. These assignments are not very long if you're keeping up with things, and I usually give you like a solid week almost to get things done. The only people that have problems with getting things in on time, frankly, are the people that procrastinate and are trying to do them at 11:59 p.m. and then run late. So, don't do that and you should be just fine, right? Just to be clear in advance, because this does come up sometimes, I don't do things like extra credit, alternative credit. I don't allow people to redo assignments for better grades. That's very high schoolish as far as I'm concerned, and we're in college now. So you get stuff, you get everything you need, you get plenty of time to do them. So do things and take them seriously from the get-go, and please don't ask for extra credit or redos or things like that. All assignments must be completed prior to the end of the semester and the submission of final grades. You're not entitled to complete work after that. Again, I know most of you know this, but almost every semester I have a student that, like the semester ends in the middle of May. It'll be like late June, and I'll get an email from a student that failed the class. Hey, I didn't turn in half of my work. Can I still do that? No, it is the summer. The semester is over. I have moved on emotionally. We will not be doing that anymore at that point. Okay. Yeah, I know most of you know this, but just to be clear, right? Most of the rest of those, the next several anyway, do read on your own. There's some important stuff in there, but I don't have anything extra to say about them, so I don't want to waste video time. I will just sort of emphasize this last one in this section, this little warning here at the bottom of the miscellaneous notices. This class might include material that might occasionally make you uncomfortable. I mean, this is a college class, and we're here to talk about, college level adult things and to talk about the world and life. The topic of our class and our text is the good life. And if we're going to talk about what the good life is, sometimes we have to talk about the bad things too that make living a good life very difficult. And sometimes that can kind of make some students a little bit uncomfortable. If that's the case, please feel free to speak with me about it. But do you understand that you're not allowed to kind of opt out of material because it makes you uncomfortable? Everything that we're doing this semester, I guarantee you it's all perfectly appropriate college level, adult level material. There's nothing in here that's like crazy, outrageously offensive or anything like that. So sometimes I have students say, well, I don't like this kind of stuff, so can I just not do it? As though that's some sort of like legitimate accommodation, and it is not, right? I'm thinking of a specific anecdote, and it's kind of relevant to that class. One of the things that philosophers figured out early on is that one of the biggest things that makes it difficult for people to live a good life is death and the fear of death and the grief over the death of loved ones, etc., right? And there's a couple of philosophers that talk about it pretty explicitly early on in the semester. And I just remember one semester a student saying, they had had a death in the family recently and they were really upset, and reading this stuff kind of made them upset. And they basically just straight up asked me if they could just skip it and not answer the tests or do the discussions or things like that. And I was very sympathetic, and I, felt bad for the student, but the answer was no. Like, you still have to do the same material as everyone else in this class. Otherwise, that's just sort of grossly unfair to all the other students. And you're not meeting the learning objectives of the class if you're literally doing less of it, right? So, instead we had a talk about, what are some resources you have available to you, people you can lean on, counseling services, how can you approach doing the assignments, try to, give them some tips for how to do that, maybe take some little breaks as you're doing readings, things like that. And it all went just fine, and they did perfectly well in the class, and they were, in fact, able to complete all those assignments. But the kicker, the sort of punchline of it, the great thing about it, was at the end of the semester, when they did their final reflection, they actually chose the topic of death as, like, they voluntarily chose it as the central idea in their own final reflection. Because once they had had a little time to kind of work through the issues, it turns out they found the material that we did really, really useful in helping them deal with that issue, which was, of course, the point of the philosophers writing about it in the first place. And so I just think, if I had just said, oh, that upsets you, you don't have to think about it, you don't have to do those assignments, they wouldn't have gotten the benefit from that, which would have been a real shame. I think they would say that it would have been a real shame as well, right? So again, to reiterate, if you find some of this stuff a little controversial, if you find some of this stuff a little upsetting, you're welcome to talk to me about it. You will get a sympathetic ear. Just don't ask to sort of opt out of assignments and material. That's not appropriate. That definitely crosses a line there. Okay, great. Then the bottom half, just to share again here. Where's the share button? I lost it. The bottom half of that page, again, this is something you can read on your own. And again, it's something where I know most of you know this and don't need to be told it. But it just talks about your responsibilities in this class as a student. Make sure you're reading and following all directions carefully, meeting all deadlines, that you have access to and the ability to use all the relevant technology, and that you take personal responsibility for the class. Online classes in some ways actually require a lot more personal responsibility. You have to be the kind of person who's very self-motivated because, you're not running into me in the halls every week to shame you into getting assignments in, that sort of thing. And again, most of you will be just fine with this every semester. Mostly it's fine. But again, every semester, there's usually a couple of students per class that an online class is just not a good fit for them. And they don't do these things. They don't read the directions. They don't follow them. They don't meet deadlines. They give me a lot of technology excuses. And it's never their fault. They don't take personal responsibility for it. and they end up flunking the class. And it's really a shame that they probably would have been better off in a face-to-face class, that the online format was just not a good fit for them. So do a little soul searching there, think to yourself, does that sound like me? Maybe this isn't a great fit for me. But again, most of you, like, this will not be a problem or an issue, and most of you will, I think, do very well in the class. Moving on to the next page, there's a lot of stuff here that you can just read on your own. A couple of things that I do want to point out briefly, but again, mostly read this on your own. The course description, again, just sort of pointing out here, course description, that's kind of boilerplate language, mostly from the course catalog. And we'll talk about, what philosophy is and what we're doing this semester as we go along. But feel free to look at that. Online mode, again, it just makes that really clear. A couple of things I do want to point out about that, though, in particular. This is not one of those sort of go at your own pace online classes where, you can just decide, well, I'll do these modules all in the first week or all in the 14th week. We are following a set 14-week schedule. There are assignments that will come up along the way, and I don't open them early for people. They will close along the way, and I don't leave them open late for people. It's not a go at your own pace. This is a fully online, and it is an asynchronous class. So that means you get to pick, like, well, am I going to watch the lecture in the morning or in the afternoon or whatever? But we do follow a specific 14-week schedule with deadlines. So make sure that you understand that in advance. You'll need to keep up with things. Also, just sometimes students, I think, they sign up for online classes because they think it'll take less time and involve less work than a face-to-face class. But this has to be equivalent to the same 3-credit face-to-face intro to philosophy class. So you should expect to spend about the same amount of time that you would. My feeling is that a good general rule of thumb for any class, face-to-face or online, is that, like, if it's a 3-credit class, however many credits it is, double that number, and that's about how many hours a week you would expect to take up of your life on average, sometimes more or less. So if it were a 3-credit face-to-face class, you'd literally spend 3 credits a week in the classroom, 3 hours a week in the classroom, and then spend about an average of 3 hours a week doing readings, doing homework, studying for tests, things like that. So this is a 3-credit class. I think you should expect on average to spend about 6 hours a week on this class, just like a face-to-face class, right? If you think that because it's online, it's only going to be like an hour a week or something, again, it's maybe not a great fit for you. So just letting you know that in advance. A lot of the other stuff, the rest of the stuff on that page, you can read and should read on your own. Learning outcomes, USB statement, early alert statements. I'm required by policy to put a lot of this stuff on here. Doesn't really affect our day-to-day stuff. It's important, though, if you transfer to a different school, they would want to see the syllabi for your classes, and it would affect whether or not this class would transfer and meet some other requirement, that kind of thing. And then let's see here. Finally, let me make sure I'm not forgetting anything. I just got some little notes for myself here before we hit this last page. Yep, did that. Good. Good. Yep, very good. Yeah. Okay, good. So the last page here just kind of shows us the schedule, talks about the course outline. As you can see, I generally post like the assignments and things Tuesdays and Thursdays. Again, this is an asynchronous class, so you don't have to meet at a time. It's just when I post things. It's mostly because it kind of helps me follow my face-to-face intro section where I meet Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then I don't get mixed up about stuff. And it keeps the same kind of schedule so that it's equivalent, which is good. As you can see, there's kind of an explanation of the key of what's going on. So the date, the topic, V means there's a video lecture, Q means there's a quiz associated with it, D means there's a discussion assignment, R means there's a reading associated with it, and it gives you the pages. And then it also shows like when the different tests are posted, when the final, it says final paper, sorry, that should say final reflection. That's just a typo on my part. Final reflection will be due then, and then it'll be handed out earlier. I'll make sure to make a note about that so you don't get confused. Just a typo. So we generally follow this, and you'll see, let me stop the share here. Generally, so what I do is usually I kind of have things, I'm putting things together a little bit the day before. And then usually sometime in the morning, but certainly by before lunch-ish, depending on my schedule that day, meetings and things, I'll post the relevant video lecture and links and information about the discussion assignments, quizzes, that kind of thing. And then the idea is that you do the relevant reading when there is one, and most of them do have one. You watch the video lecture, you take notes, and then you do your relevant assignments. You log on to the quiz, you do the discussion assignments, that kind of thing, right? As a general rule, I kind of like when I'm teaching face to face, I have to like pause and give people time to write things down. Obviously, I don't need to do that with this class because you can literally just pause and rewind videos and things, right? So usually what I do is, I'll have an overhead with I'll show a chunk of the lecture and I'll just kind of leave it on for a few seconds so you can pause, take a screenshot or write things down. And then I'll have that go away and then I'll lecture and refer to it and refer to the text. So as it goes, feel free to pause, to rewind, etc. Make sure you're getting the information because there's no reason for me to build long pauses into an asynchronous class where you're just watching a pre-recorded video. Okay. As far as note taking, I give fairly detailed outlines, but you still have to take notes in addition to that. There's also information in the lecture that you need for the quizzes, the discussions. They look fairly detailed, I should say, but they are still just outlines. So don't get into that trap of, only writing down what's on the overhead. Make sure you're taking notes from what I say as well. And again, pause, rewind, that kind of thing. Okay. So yeah, typical class will look like that. I'll lecture over stuff, you take notes, pause as you need to, and then just follow the assignment directions for the relevant assignments, right? So for example, today, according to our little thing here, on Tuesday, 2/6, when I post this, I'm recording it the day before. It's just this video with the welcome in the syllabus and then a quiz over it. On Thursday, 2/8, it'll be a lecture over what is philosophy, kind of an introductory lecture. There's no reading associated with it. It just comes from me. And then there won't be a quiz on it, but there will be a discussion. So it's just kind of ease you into doing the assignments. Today you have a quiz, but not a discussion. Next time you have a discussion, but not a quiz. And then from there on out, there'll be a reading, a video lecture, a quiz, and a discussion up until the relevant test time. Okay. And then we'll just kind of follow along. Right. I think that's it. Again, I haven't read all of this in detail. I've read a fair amount of it and pointed out things, but you are responsible for everything that's here. So make sure you read the whole syllabus carefully. Make sure that you let me know if you have any questions. And then just sort of make sure you do your quiz, get on that right away. Don't wait until the last second. Make sure you know how to use the technology, that kind of thing. And then keep a lookout for the next day on the syllabus course outline there, where you'll have the next round of things to do, right? So again, let me know if you have any questions and hope everybody has a really good semester.